And just as a reminder, you are watching Retrothon 2019, starting off with a huge, probably the biggest ever TurboGrafx-16 block. And this is the Legend of Hero Tonma. Enemy is very familiar with this game. He was the first person to ever be on the leaderboard for this game, and I would have never known it existed had Enemy not mentioned it in during his stream one night. This game is super challenging. There is one-hit deaths. This whole game is one-hit deaths. So I'm going to hope it goes well. I'm hoping for the best, expecting the worst. Evan, why don't you tell us a little bit about this game, if you don't mind? Oh, first we'll start it up the game, and then I'll let Evan talk a little bit about it.
There we go.
Here we go. I got to reset the timer. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, go.
So this is Legend of Hero Tonma. Just like the other two games that Lad is playing today, it is another arcade port. This one's by iRen, the same company that does Ninja Spirit, which we'll see a little later in the run, or a little later in the marathon.
So, for those of you that aren't familiar with the TurboGrafx-16, it actually has turbo switches built into the controller. The controller that came with the console has turbo switches, so you can engage turbo anytime you want. This is the first game I'm showcasing today that actually I will keep the turbo on the entire time. All this fire is because the turbo is engaged. That guy was random.
So the name of the game is Legend of Hero Tonma, so you would be forgiven for thinking this person's name is Tonma, but it's not. It's Tommy. Even in the Japanese version, I think it calls him. I'm pretty sure it calls him Tommy.
Is Tonma ever mentioned in the the lore of this game at all?
I don't know. Enemy might be able to tell us, but this is one of the more expensive games for the consoles, even the Japanese one. And I'm sure at some point Lat will casually mention that he has a complete in-box version.
I have the PC Engine version as I have a PC Engine, but this game is not inexpensive. There it is, first death.
The TurboGrafx-16 version is like $600, $700 complete in box.
Something ridiculous, and that has a lot to do with the fact that this came out later on in the console's lifespan, and I think that's one of the reasons why it became such a tough piece to find.
So if you've ever seen the arcade game of this, it's on MAME. That's probably the most likely place you'll see it. I don't think I ever saw it in the arcade, but the game itself is nearly identical. They lowered the palette, the color depth of the palette, just to fit onto the TurboGrafx-16, but otherwise it plays pretty similarly. Tommy's I think he looks a little bit better in this version of the game than he does in the arcade version.
There was a sprite that I didn't see that the actual boss just shot there, and that's one of the challenging things about this game is that there's a lot of stuff on screen, as you're already noticing, and so sometimes I may miss where an enemy actually shot, and the eyes deceive me a bit. Plus, so you want to be, there are certain power-ups you want to get in this game, and there are multiple different types of weapons, which are super fun. You'll notice he shoots out of his finger, a la Cuphead. Like that one. Haven't seen that pattern before. Have to avoid that. Hey, there we go. Okay, we got him. Cool. That is why EverDrives exist. Exactly. For games like this is why the EverDrives exist. Good point, Dog Developer.
Yeah.
And so we actually made it through stage 2. Woo! Thank you. As the levels progress, it's tough to say that all of the levels are challenging because of the one-hit death. So it's not like the difficulty ramps up or ramps down. The whole game is difficulty, but it's so short. There's only 7 stages. So I'm going to get I'm getting certain power-ups here to have the right weapon for this boss and the next level as well. And also, I'm trying to reduce lag while playing this game as well. You'll notice that there's some lag exists. It's tough to get rid of all of the lag. And I'm not always firing. You don't want to keep all the sprites on the screen at once when you're doing a speed run of this game. So
yeah, it's similar to the NES. The less sprites you have on screen, the more consistently the frame rate's going to run. This boss is probably the easiest in the game. If you have the right weapons, you just literally stand in one spot and fire.
Can you surely save the legendary princess? So it's the princess who's legendary, not Tonma or Tommy.
Oh, okay.
Maybe that explains absolutely nothing, but at least we got that.
Is his girlfriend Tonma?
Who knows? Anybody want to make up some lore? The chat. We'll leave this up to you guys.
Does anyone know, Japanese given names? Is Tonma a common name?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know, actually. Look at that. Learning new things as we go. You can actually bounce on these rocks, but it can be a bit sketchy.
Enemy says there is no Tonma.
There is no Tonma.
Only Zool.
I will give you a heads up. Towards the end of the game, there's going to be a little bit of a seizure warning. If that's a real thing for you, please beware. I'll try to give you a heads up because the ending can get a little crazy. Also, a Ninja Spear, which we'll talk about later on in the marathon.
So this is arguably the hardest stage of the game, just because there's so many enemies. There's ground that breaks away that you have to then recover from. There's things flying through the air. There's, these jumps where you've got to jump out, jump back. It's a big pain in the butt.
So that K is actually a screen clear. That's why I get there. It sometimes can help reduce lag depending on how many enemies are on screen at that point. So basically every power up I get, there's definitely a purpose to it. I'm gonna kill these guys just to make sure. Okay, cool.
Of course, I say this is the hardest level, and Lad is making it look easy.
There's some really cool things about this game as well, and you'll notice the jumping mechanic. You can actually jump on top of enemies, and it doesn't kill them. You actually bounce off of them. It makes the game. It adds a really cool dimension to the game that you don't just get in a typical shooter. And I'm gonna actually have to use that mechanic to get over this part here. Oh, I didn't get on the first try. Come on. There we go.
Yeah, this is a nearly pixel perfect jump. You've got to kind of get it after they've jumped into the air just slightly before you can get up over the
I have been stuck there for many times like for over 30 seconds trying to get that jump. Which is not... And 30 seconds in this game is just like death. Because the run is so short, things really do come down to seconds. There we go. That's pretty good. So we are heading... This is the last stage. And... I forgot what it was called. Oh well.
It's called the castle.
The castle, that's right. Called the castle.
And you call it the not fun castle.
Yeah, it is not a fun castle. That little green dude above me, ooh, causes me great death sometimes.
The one thing you'll notice is as quickly as he's running through this game, it's only been 7 minutes. This game has arguably the hardest boss in the history of video games. The final boss just is really rough. He's going to have a lot of trouble. Dave Hodis, you're going to really enjoy your Mister. I play my TG-16 and PC Engine games on a Mister.
I just got wrecked by see, I never even saw that enemy fire, to be honest with you. I was so close to it that it just, there was basically almost nothing I can do. But thankfully, continues, the one thing I do enjoy about this game is the continues are quite generous. So.
Yeah, and you also, since you start at the beginning of the stage, almost every stage has a full set of power-ups as you go through the stage.
Enemy, I have no idea what killed me. But that could have been another chance for a language command. I was like, where did that thing come from? Okay.
So you can see he's got to jump in the air and hold it so that he gets over the top fireballs and then get down below.
Oh no, we're gonna die! No! Well, just ignore like that one actually happened.
That is the casual death that everyone takes the very first time they beat this.
And I was just trying to highlight what the game looks like as if you're doing a casual playthrough of this game. That's going to happen to you, so you can just plan for it. I'm just trying to show off every aspect of the game, including the death.
This is a demonstration.
Exactly.
We're exhibiting all the things that can happen. It's an exhibition.
The nice thing about this game is that the levels are so darn short that you look at that, right? Just like that, we're back here again. Yep. It's as if nothing ever happened.
Yeah. Now, what I want to remind you, after this, he's going to play the final boss. The hardest boss in video games.
No, I'm going to die again. Oh my gosh.
Okay, well then maybe you're wrong.
It's okay.
And then after the boss, once he beats the boss, there is a flashing screen. So just if that's a trouble for you,
yes,
please look away from the screen.
Okay.
All right. Let's get let's all remind Lat not to talk while he's attempting this boss.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Maybe we'll finish it. So, but yeah, so the TurboGrafx-16, the PC Engine, they're not the cheapest consoles to get if you don't already have one. Like Lat and I both have our childhood TurboGrafx-16s, so that's what we play on for the most part. But there is the Mister out there. There are good emulators.
Toad wants me to recite War and Peace. Why not, right? That's a great way to keep the mind focused while doing a speed run.
All right, final boss. Hardest boss in video game history. Everyone be ready.
Wait for it. Wait for it. It's a really cool ending boss too, which is kind of unfortunate that we don't get a chance to see it too well. But yeah.
That's definitely not Peach that he just saved, as much as she might look like Peach.
There is no end to this story. Well, that's probably why the lore doesn't make any sense. As long as you have courage, hope, and dreams, Tommy will always be in your mind. Whenever you stand bravely against evil, he will be with you to make another heroic legend. Okay, well, we actually beat it. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, Retrothon, for the opportunity to showcase all of these great TurboGrafx-16 games. On a personal note, I'm gonna name drop here. I got a chance to meet Vonnie Vaughn in person at Calithon. We got a chance to hang. We were on, we helped each other out during the runs. A great way to start it with some Newtopia. Stay tuned for the rest because we have some awesome games. There is some awesome TurboGrafx-16 games coming after this, and I will be back later for the race. Hopefully, it'll play better than I did these games. And Evan, thank you so much for helping with the commentary.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Stick around. More TurboGrafx-16 action for Retrothon 2019. See y'all later. Bye bye.